Hi, I'm Davy. I'm awesome. Welcome to Davy's Awesome Movies, where I review the styles of movies I love, the alternative B-rated cult style flicks. And this week we're starting a cult series that I've loved since my childhood. This movie came out in 1996, and it was directed by Robert Rodriguez, and written by Quentin Tarantino and Robert Kurtzman. Produced by Gianni Nunari and Nir Tepper. Made by Dimension Films, A Band Apart, and Los Hooligans Productions, and distributed by Miramax Films. Ladies and gentlemen, From Dusk Till Dawn. The movie opens with Texas Ranger Earl McGraw, played by the late great Michael Parks, and he's going into a liquor store chit-chatting with the clerk Pete Bottoms. Pete Bottoms, that sounds like a porno name. By the way, this is the same Earl McGraw that you might remember from the Kill Bill movies and Death Proof and Planet Terror. As they are chit-chatting, McGraw brings up the Gecko brothers, Richie and Seth, who are wanted men for murder, and they know that they are headed to Mexico by way of Texas. And then, wrapping up the conversation, McGraw needs to go use the restroom. So he leaves. As soon as he's in the bathroom, out come the Gecko brothers. Seth, played by George Clooney, and Richie, played by Quentin Tarantino. Apparently, they wanted Pete to get the police officer out of there. The two patrons in the store were their hostages. They're not really happy about him letting the cop use the bathroom. Of course, Pete tells him he comes in and uses the bathroom all the time. If he had said no this time, he'd have known something was up. But Richie claims that he saw Pete giving the cop signals. Pete, of course, swears he wasn't.
You be cool.
Yeah, you being cool made you Batman. And for a long time, you were the worst Batman ever. Until he took your place. Now the Ranger comes back, he's chit-chatting with Pete a little bit more, and Pete's trying to get him out of there. So apparently, even though this movie was made way before the Kill Bill movies, Death Proof, or Planet Terror, those all predate this. Which means that everybody right now in this world has survived a zombie apocalypse. Good for you. Although it's a little weird that you would all survive a zombie apocalypse and then just go about like nothing ever happened. He also shoots Pete, claiming to Seth that Pete was mouthing the words "help us," even though clearly Pete wasn't. Richie was clearly lying, giving us the impression that Richie is somebody that likes to start things. But apparently Pete has had it. Well, don't just stand there, give him a hand! After a little bit of shooting back and forth, the hostages run out of there, and Richie starts shooting the liquor bottles behind Pete. That's hot. And as Richie and Seth are going to the car, we find out that this all started because Seth told Richie to go inside and get a road map. So apparently if they lived in a world where GPS had been invented, none of this would have happened. We also find out as they're driving, and the credits are going, that there is somebody locked up in the trunk. They decide to stop and get a motel room for the night, figure things out, and they, of course, take the hostage in there to explain to her that if she cooperates, she will get out of this just fine. If not, they will kill her. With that, Seth leaves to go get some food and call his contact, Carlos, in Mexico.
You want to come over on the bed and watch TV with me?
You know, I think she'd rather sit there. But of course, she's afraid, so she just goes and does whatever he wants. Then we meet the Fullers. Father Jacob, son Scott, and daughter. Jacob is played by Harvey Keitel, whereas his daughter is played by Juliette Lewis. Through their conversation, we find out that Jacob is a pastor, but is giving it up after the recent death of his wife and Scott's mom. Apparently, he's having a crisis of faith. Then we get a cameo from Kelly Preston and John Saxton. Kelly Preston was offered this part after originally the part of Seth was offered to John Travolta. He did turn it down to do Pulp Fiction. Her and John Saxton are talking back and forth about the Gecko brothers, how Richie helped his brother Seth escape, and they are now on the lam with stolen bank money. So now we have the whole backstory. I will say it's a little ironic, these two doing a cameo in this movie together, considering years later in 2020, the both of them would pass away within weeks of each other. Rest in peace to both of you. Seth gets back with some Big Kahuna burgers. The burger place that Quentin Tarantino has made up. He likes to make up brands of stuff, like Red Apple Tobacco and stuff like that. But he's not really worried about his burgers. He's now angry because Richie, apparently, while he was gone, raped and killed his hostage. Because as we find out, Richie is basically a psycho. A hot-headed, sex-offending psycho. Whereas Seth is a cool, calm, collected thief. He's not a murderer per se. He's just the guy who will murder if he has to. Richie murders because he just likes to. And Seth is pissed because Richie just keeps putting him in these sticky situations. I know the feeling. Not that my brother is a murderer or a sex offender or anything, but plenty of times I've had girls coming up to me like, your brother is really creeping me out, and I've had to explain to them, he's not going to hurt you, he just wants your cake.
Dude, shut up!
It turns out the Fullers decided they wanted to spend the night in a hotel because the father, Jacob, just wanted a night in a real bed, not in the RV bed. And they come to regret that as Seth gets an idea to take the Fullers hostage, as they need a better way into Mexico. They're checking the borders, and a nice fake family in an RV would do the trick. But where's Kate? Oh, there she is. After Richie imagines Kate flirting with him, if we could call it that, they get her dressed, round up the Fullers, and get them into the RV on their way to Mexico. Kate asks why. What's in Mexico?
Mexico's.
Probably the best line in this movie. When they get to the U.S.-Mexican border, Seth and Richie take Kate into the bathroom, reminding them she is being held hostage, and Jacob and Seth get to meet Cheech Marin's first character in this movie.
What's your purpose in Mexico?
But not his last. Of course, because they're looking for murderers, they demand it will be let into the RV and search it.
Do you mind?
Now light a match! Because of this, they've seen nothing suspicious. They let the RV go into Mexico. And once they get to Mexico, they head straight to a bar that advertises being open from dusk till dawn. Oh, that's why they call it that. It is a very unseedy place with even a very unseedy name. And in fact, as they're walking in, Cheech Marin's second character is outside advertising their talent inside. Cheech Marin's character tries to stop them at the door, but they knock him out. And then Richie kicks him, just cuz. Then they go inside, and the bartender, played by Danny Trejo, has something to tell them.
This bar is for bikers and truckers only.
This pisses off Seth. But before things get ugly, Jacob intervenes.
I am a truck driver.
I mean, I guess, an RV, the kind of license he has, yeah, sure. They have a sit and some drinks, and we're treated to a dance by Santanico Pandominium, played by the lovely Salma Hayek. By the way, this dance would be used in other Quentin Tarantino films, usually on a television, like the movie Four Rooms. Funny enough, Salma Hayek almost didn't do this role. Apparently she is deathly afraid of snakes. She has a phobia about it. And when reading the script, she said, I can't do this. I'm not gonna do it. Robert Rodriguez decided to lie to her at some point and tell her it's okay. Madonna has signed on to do the role. That worked because Salma Hayek decided after that she was going to go take some therapy sessions with a licensed therapist to help get over her phobia just enough to do this part. Although if I were Robert Rodriguez, I would just take the snake out. It's not like it was that important. I mean, I get it made her look a little bit more evil, but... But now, the guy they beat up outside comes back in, and they got some trouble as he rounds up some of the people that work at the bar. I mean, would that really hurt? He had a hole in his hand from the gun shot earlier. Not to mention, I'm sure by then it would have numbed and everything. But Seth and Richie make quick work of everybody. Well, I guess that's done. Except it's not. After an hour and 1 minute in this movie, we finally find out what kind of movie it is. It is not the story of two brothers trying to escape from the law. It's a vampire movie. We find out that literally everybody who works in this bar is a vampire. From the strippers, to the bartender, to the bouncers, even the band playing. Most everybody in the bar is being slaughtered. Except some people are fighting back, like Kate. Don't worry, Cheech will be back. One of the patrons, whose name is Sex Machine, takes out Danny Trejo. Apparently they made the vampire blood green in this movie as a way to help the rating stay at an R, not to NC-17. Sure. As long as it's a different color, it's not blood. Santaniko gets Seth down and tells him she's not going to drain him completely, just enough to make him her slave.
No thanks. I already had a wife.
Apparently that line was completely improvised by George Clooney. Apparently Robert Rodriguez was not going to leave it in the final cut, but changed his mind. But with that, Santaniko is killed, and it's becoming clear to me that these vampires are not that tough to kill. The big bouncer vampire encounters a man named Frost, whose name I only know from the credits. They never actually say it in the movie. You know, normally I'd be like, oh, sure, whatever, BS, but I don't care. That was freaking cool. The problem is, though, you don't kill a vampire by pulling its heart out. You kill a vampire by stabbing it in the heart. Okay, that works. So now that the vampires are dead, Seth goes to see his dead brother Richie. Tell him he's sorry. He misses him. And he loves him.
I love you too, Seth.
Seriously, Seth, did you never watch a vampire movie? Seth does hesitate for a moment, but quickly realizes he has to kill Richie. So he does. Lucky. After this, Seth is reeling from the fact that he just had to kill his own brother because he turned into a vampire.
Even though I don't believe in vampires.
Yeah, vampires are too much to believe in, even though apparently all of you survived a zombie apocalypse. I'm thinking it's clear later they didn't think it through. So, the Fullers, Seth, Sex Machine, and Frost go around staking all the bodies before they turn into vampires. Somebody should have been focusing on their work. Later, as they're talking and figuring out what they're going to do, Frost starts going into a story about Vietnam and killing a bunch of Viet Cong with his bare hands. Sex Machine turns into a vampire, and first person he decides to bite is Frost. Apparently he didn't like the Vietnam stories. He also gets a bite of Jacob's arm. Frost throws Sex Machine into the door where there's a bunch of vampire bats outside waiting to get in. And Frost turns into a vampire himself. And they don't explain how he turned into a vampire within less than 2 minutes, and everybody else, it seems to take a while. Scott, Kate, and Seth have to run into a back room. Jacob is outside, but he does cleverly work his way back to them. When he gets into this back room, they realize that it is a storage room filled with a bunch of stuff that they have taken from the bikers and truckers throughout the years. So they go roaming through it all to see if they can find weapons. And they make several weapons. Because Jacob is a pastor, he blesses water. They fill up balloons, super soakers with holy water. Kate finds a crossbow. Seth finds an interesting weapon. They basically are just getting ready, gearing up, because they realize that these vampires are going to break through, so their best bet is to go out there and fight them off as best they can until Jacob turns. But knowing Jacob is going to turn, he makes Seth, who easily promises, and his kids promise that once he turns, they will not hesitate, they will kill him. So now they go out and they fight all these vampires. And as you can imagine, through fighting and killing these vampires, eventually...
Dad?
Well, Scott, looks like it's time to keep your promise. Scott was apparently a liar. He does kill his dad, but it is too late. Not only has he been bitten, but that moment of hesitation caused him to be ganged up on by a bunch of other vampires.
Kill me, Kate.
I mean, it's up to you. You didn't promise Scott. Wow, that revolver has some kick. It's now just down to Seth and Kate, but they do realize that the sun is coming out and shining through holes in the walls. So they get close to the light as best they can to be able to keep these vampires off of them. But then they hear Carlos, Seth's contact, outside, and they yell for him to break the door down. Once it's open, Seth and Kate are able to run out, whereas the vampires... Now they're safe. Seth is face-to-face with his contact Carlos, who is Cheech Marin's third and final character in this movie. And he's angry. He demands to know why, of all places, did he want to meet there.
One place is just as good as another.
Apparently, he just picked a place at random. And because he picked a place at random, people are dead. So, to make up for it, he offers Seth a deal on him getting to stay in a town called El Rey, but also asks Seth what was going on. Were they psychos?
Psychos do not explode when sunlight hits them. I don't give a how crazy they are.
Another great line in this movie. After Seth works out his stay to El Rey, he decides to give Kate some of his stolen money so she can get back to the States. And as they all leave, we get a better understanding of what was going on with this bar. A very big understanding. So there you have it. That's a 1996 classic Rodriguez-Tarantino film, From Dusk Till Dawn. This movie had plenty of success as it had a $19 million budget and did $59.3 million in the box office, which is also interesting when you find out that it was a non-union movie, which is a very big budget for a non-union movie. Almost got it shut down. They did certain things to keep the rating down to an R, but that only helped so much, as it did get banned in Ireland for quite a long time. It has since been released on DVD in Ireland, but for almost 20 years, it wasn't allowed. Robert Kurtzman came up with the storyline for this, and then Quentin Tarantino was hired and given $1,500 to write an actual script, which he did. And Robert Kurtzman wanted to be the original director of this, but the studio was like, you're just too inexperienced. They wanted Quentin Tarantino to direct it, but he was focusing on other things. He wanted to be a part of it, but he didn't want to direct it, star in it, while also working on other things. So he recommended Robert Rodriguez, and they took him. Other people that almost directed it were Rennie Harlin and Tony Scott, but Rennie Harlin turned it down because to him he read the script and was like, this is a B movie. It's not really a B movie. It's a cult flick, but it's not a B movie. It's funny to me how, though, Quentin Tarantino is one of those directors who just likes to use people that he's used many, many times. Same with Robert Rodriguez. Selma Hayek, who was in Desperado, was in this. Harvey Keitel was in Reservoir Dogs and would later be in Pulp Fiction. And Cheech Marin, who was also in Desperado, was also in this, playing 3 parts. Although, funny enough, Eric Estrada was actually originally up to play Carlos. Before George Clooney was cast as Seth, they actually had a myriad of other actors to play him, like Antonio Banderas, Steve Buscemi, Michael Madsen, Tim Roth, John Travolta, Christopher Walken, Jeff Goldblum, James Woods, and even Robert De Niro were offered the part of Seth before George Clooney. Most of them wanted to do the film, but they passed over scheduling conflicts. It happens. The only one who didn't pass over a scheduling conflict was John Travolta. His career was on a downward slope. He was meeting with Quentin Tarantino. Tarantino said, I have a part for you that is perfect, and told him about Seth Gecko, the character in From Dusk Till Dawn. And John Travolta was going to take it because, like I said, his career was on the down at that time. But he did tell Tarantino, do you have anything else? Because I really have no interest in vampire movies. Which, a little insulted because I love vampire movies, but a little okay with it because I couldn't imagine him as Seth. But that's when Tarantino was like, well, I'm doing another project myself, Pulp Fiction. I have a character called Vincent Vega I think you might be good for. And that worked out very well for John Travolta. Then again, this also kind of worked out for George Clooney because apparently it was watching this movie that made Joel Schumacher want to make him Batman, which was great for George Clooney but terrible for the rest of us. Even George Clooney admits he didn't do a great job as Batman. And like I said, for the longest time he was considered the worst Batman. Now I would argue, no, there's one worse than him. Overall, though, what I love about this movie is the pacing of the movie itself. It's funny to me. I now see reaction videos to this movie of people who've never heard of it, and it's an hour into it that they're like, wait a minute, this is a vampire movie? I knew it was a vampire movie when I first saw it because I had seen the commercials and trailers. That's what made me want to see it. I like vampire movies. I always have. But I remember watching it, and for about an hour watching it, I'm like, this movie's good, but were we swerved? Is this not really a vampire movie? What's going on here? And that's one thing that got me from the very first time I watched it. I couldn't help but think, if you didn't go into this knowing it was a vampire movie, then you would not know it was a vampire movie until an hour into it. You would think this is just a true crime movie. And it's funny that all these years later, I'm getting proven right as people who weren't even alive when this movie came out are seeing it for the first time and being shocked that it is a vampire movie. And a damn good one at that. But I love that. I love the pacing of it, how they build up these characters and stories before letting you know, by the way, this is a monster movie. That's just so freaking cool. The movie was so good, though, that it has spawned 2 sequels and a series. The sequels, I will admit, not as good as this one, but still pretty good. I will get to those in the future, but for right now, if you are one of those who has somehow not seen From Dusk Till Dawn, then it's time you get off your butt and go watch From Dusk Till Dawn, because it is one of my favorite vampire movies of all time. So there you have it. That's my movie review this week. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you did, make sure to hit like, hit subscribe, hit the little bell so you get notifications for when I post new videos. And leave a comment I can respond to in my next comment corner. If you've seen From Dusk Till Dawn, tell me what you thought of it. Tell me if you were surprised to find out it was a vampire movie. Love it, guys.